What if there was a safe space for you to explore artificial intelligence? What if there was a team of friendly professionals waiting to help you examine what you can do with AI in your courses? Welcome to the world of what if.
Hi everyone, welcome. Happy Friday. My name is Shannon Deere. Like Aubrey said, I'm here to talk to you about Google Gemini. I should say I am a member of our quality assurance team here at the Center for Online and Continuing Education, and I appreciate you all being here. We're going to talk about Google Gemini today. There is so much that Google Gemini can do that I won't get to show you today, but it is my aim to give you kind of a foundational understanding of this tool, show you some of its features, including some of its newer features, and give you a few things that you might try out yourself when you hopefully stick around for playtime after the presentation. So what will today look like? We're going to start by talking about accessing Gemini as one of FAU's endorsed AI tools. Then we'll do a little tour of the interface. So I'll give you a sense of kind of what Google Gemini's key functionality looks like. And then, like I said, we'll spend most of our time just demoing out a couple features that you can hopefully kind of feel comfortable enough to use right away. Maybe it's things that improve your day-to-day functions here in whatever role you're in at FAU. I will say that the slide deck that you see, we're not going to really spend any time here, but it was shared with you if you're online in the chat. And what you will find in the slide deck is links to some of the key resources that we will use, including the AI at FAU website and links to Google Gemini itself. And then later in the slide deck, you'll see some of the prompts, both that I will use during the presentation and some other things that we won't get to, but that maybe give you something to play around with during playtime after the presentation. So like I said, we're actually going to start at the AI at FAU website. So if you have never visited this before, fau.edu/AI, I encourage you to give that a look during playtime today, perhaps. There are tons of resources here, everything from kind of how to cite AI if you're using it, ideas for using it as a student, different AI-related certificates and trainings that we offer at the university, a faculty AI hub for insights into how it might be integrated into your teaching or research. One of my favorite things is the prompt of the month that changes, a themed prompt. If you're, again, especially if you're new to AI, it gives you some things to try out with some support so you don't feel like you're just going in blind. But I'm going to take you right to the AI tools page here. So what you see when you go to this site is a list of those FAU endorsed AI tools. So these are tools that have been vetted and approved, maybe purchased for use by FAU. And why this is a good place to start is, again, particularly if you're new to generative AI, you might feel more comfortable exploring those tools that have that kind of FAU stamp of approval. And some of those tools that you'll see if you look through this page, of course, is Microsoft Copilot, which we've talked about quite a few times if you've joined us for a playground in the past. The OWL1, this is one of the newer tools, those AI agents that came up if you were with us a couple weeks ago. We looked at this a little bit. You'll see things like Grammarly and the Zoom AI Companion, Notebook LM. But of course, today we're talking about Google Gemini. One thing to note is with Gemini being an FAU AI endorsed AI tool, that you have the data classification protection levels 2 to 4. So one way to think about this is that you should feel comfortable to share basically any information up to the most kind of secure information. So you're not going to want to feed it your social security number, for example, but anything else, you can feel pretty comfortable that your information is protected. Whatever you're feeding to Google Gemini is not going to be used to train those AI models. And you have that layer of data protection. So I can go to this Google Gemini page and I can get tons of examples beyond what we're even going to talk about today that you can use Google Gemini for in whatever role you have here at FAU. So whether you're a student, you're a faculty member, you're a staff, you're looking for ways to kind of automate some of your routine tasks, your administrative tasks, you can go to those pages and get some guidance and prompt ideas for ways to use Google Gemini. Great place to start. So again, let's say I'm a faculty member and I'm looking for ways to kind of update and refresh some of my teaching or work it into my research. So you have sample prompts you can use. You can copy the prompts directly here, and you will see that you can launch Gemini directly from this page. So I can select that. Of course, if anytime you want to access Gemini yourself, you can just go into a browser and type gemini.google.com. So here is the Google Gemini interface. Here, the first thing that I want to point out, you want to first check the top right-hand corner that you have your icon there, and that tells you that you're logged in. So you'll see that my S icon is here in the top right-hand corner, and that's how I know that I'm logged into my account and I have that extra layer of protection because of the FAU Gemini partnership. If I were not logged in, I would see a prompt there to sign in. You would put in your FAU email and it would take you through the multi-factor authentication there. But that's a really important first step for ensuring that you have that protection. All right, so what are we looking at? You have your prompt box in the center. This really doesn't look that different from any other generative AI tool that you might have used before, ChatGPT, Copilot. You have your prompt box in the center. This is like your command center where you're going to enter all of your requests into Google Gemini. You'll notice that on the top left-hand side, you see you have the ability to switch between models. So I have access to 2.5 Flash or 2.5 Pro. Typically what you're using Google Gemini for, whatever the default is probably fine, but you do have access through the partnership to 2.5 Pro. So you can change through the models there. And then looking at your prompt box, you have access to a few tools directly from the prompt box that I'll mention here briefly. So the first thing that you see if you were to select tools is something called guided learning. And this is one of my favorite things and something that you might want to play around with a little bit later during playtime. If I were to select guided learning before I prompted Google Gemini, you're telling it that you want it to kind of work with you as a collaborator, as a thought partner. Instead of just giving you automatically an answer, it's going to kind of engage in conversation with you. It's going to ask you some questions and help you refine your prompts so that by the time it is giving you what you're requesting, it's hopefully closer to what you're actually looking for. So I like that as kind of highlighting the fact that, like, I think generative AI is maybe strongest as kind of just a collaborator, as a thought partner, right? Instead of just, oh, I go here for my answers, right? So you're just kind of telling it right away, okay, instead of just, if I were to say, help me create a 15-week module for my intro to religion course, right? If you didn't select guided learning, it will give you a 15-week outline for that course, but of course it's going to make a ton of assumptions about what you want, right? You're not telling it much. If you selected that first, it's going to prompt you with a lot more questions to say, okay, well, here's one way we could do it. What do you think about this? Or what if we organized it this way? How do you feel about the kinds of assignments or whatever you want in your course? So that's a fun thing to play around with, the guided learning piece. The second thing that's there, it says create images. So this is Nano Banana, which is the Google Gemini's image generator and editor. And this has been recently updated. So another great thing to play around with if you want to generate new images, if you're creating a presentation or putting something together for your class. You can feed it a couple images and ask it to kind of combine them, to change the style of the image, to change the background. So there's a ton of cool things to do with that Nano Banana image generator. You'll also notice, because it's new and recently updated, that it's going to be kind of prompting you often to check out some of these new features. So you'll see it also at the banner there, unless you close that out when you log into Google Gemini. And then the last thing, Canvas. Canvas is just kind of a collaborator for more complex projects. So you'll see the Canvas view open up when we actually go to prompt Gemini in just a little bit. And basically Canvas view has the conversation with Google Gemini on the left-hand side, and then your kind of Canvas editing space on the right. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute, but that's kind of for ongoing, more complex projects. Okay, great. Just a couple things about the sidebar. So you can choose to have the sidebar displayed all the time by clicking on this, the 3 horizontal lines here, and the sidebar will stay open all the time, or you can collapse it so you have a bigger view of your kind of command center space there. And on the sidebar, of course, like all generative AI tools, it's going to save all your past projects. So you can go back to a project and continue to work or refine something, and you'll see that in the left-hand side. So let's try out kind of a practical example here, because I want to show you a couple of ways to refine or give feedback to Google Gemini after you've prompted it for something. So let's say you are an instructor at FAU and you want to send a reminder email to your students about an upcoming deadline for a big paper, a midterm paper that they have not yet submitted. And maybe give them some, connect them to some resources that they have available to them in case they're struggling. So I have my prompts written out here. I'm going to copy it for the sake of time. But this is what I'm going to drop into my prompt box. Draft a clear and encouraging email to students who have not yet submitted their midterm project, reminding them of the deadline, your office hours, and I've given the office hours there, and offering to connect them with university support resources like the Center for Excellence in Writing. Okay, so I'm going to submit that request, and it's going to think, which always makes me feel better that it's thinking a little bit about what it is composing here. So you give it a minute, and then we have our sample draft here. So the first thing I'm going to show you, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit to show you this. This is the Canvas view I was talking about before. So you'll see that Canvas is highlighted here, but you're going to have all of your back and forth, your prompting with Google Gemini on the left-hand side. And then this is like your Canvas space where you're kind of working on refining your project. And I like that it's opened up the Canvas view. I didn't even prompt it to do that, but because we're going to actually work on, we're not going to accept this as our final version. So now this is kind of our collaboration space. Okay, so what did it give us? Checking in, midterm project deadline. Hi everyone, pretty casual there. This is a friendly reminder that the deadline for your project is coming up. I didn't tell it that deadline, so it just made that up. It's a busy time of year. If you're feeling stuck, please don't hesitate to connect with me. My office hours are blah, blah, blah. Additionally, we have fantastic resources. So it mentions the Center for Excellence in Writing and the resources that they offer. Please reach out if you have questions. Okay, this is not a bad start here, but there are several ways that you can refine this response if it's not exactly what you want. So the first thing I want to show you is on the left-hand side where you have your history of everything that you've prompted in this particular chat with Google Gemini. At the bottom, you'll see a thumbs up and a thumbs down. I know that's probably pretty small for everyone online, but it's here underneath where your prompt is. So if you hover over, you'll see that the thumbs up tells it this is a good response and thumbs down tells it bad response. So while I told you that Google Gemini isn't going to learn on a broad scale outside of the protected kind of FAU space from what you're telling it, it is going to learn you a little bit. So if you are going to use Google Gemini regularly, the more feedback you can give it about like, okay, this is what I was looking for. This is a really great response. Good job. You can give it a thumbs up. And it may be in particular if whatever it generated for you was not at all what you had in mind or didn't sound like what you wanted, whatever, it wasn't the length you wanted, you can tell it bad response and it's going to kind of learn you the more that you use it, right? So that's one way you can just give it feedback. But there are several ways that you can also tell it, kind of refine your response if it's not exactly what you're looking for. So what you're looking for is this vertical little line of options here on the bottom right-hand side. And the first thing I want to show you is where it says suggest edits. If you select that, you're telling Gemini, I kind of want you to act as an editor of your own response. So yes, Gemini did create this email, but now I'm telling them, okay, go back in and read this email and tell me where you think specific areas where you might change it to improve it, right? So it's thinking, it's editing its response. It's taking a good time. Okay, now we have annotated suggestions on the right-hand side. In my experience, they usually give about 4 or 5. Let's see. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 suggested edits that you could make to the email. And you'll see that those are annotated with specific areas highlighted, and you can read through all of those and decide if those are changes that you think would improve the response and you want to apply those or not. So you have the option of applying all of those changes, or you can go through and read each one and decide to only apply individual ones. Because I'm zoomed in a little bit, I have to click that show more, and then you'll see that individual apply button for each of those suggestions. Okay, so everything from like, okay, maybe changing the subject line a little bit more, or adding specific details to like your Zoom length, for example. Let's see, at the very end, let's say I just want to accept this last one where it says, you know, there's a way to make your kind of closing statement a little bit more encouraging or motivating by saying like, you know, I'm here, I know you're going to succeed, I can't wait to see your completed project. So maybe I decide I just want to accept that, and it's only going to change that highlighted area there. So I'm going to tell it that I want to apply that, and it'll take a couple of seconds, and then it will implement that suggestion. Okay, it's applying that final change, and then we'll see it there. Cool. Okay, so I've decided I don't want any of those other suggestions. I reject you and you and you. Now I have 2 other options for kind of refining it. Of course, you can also continue prompting it, right? That's always an option for refining your response, but they have a couple quick options here. So you can use this little toggle here to change the length automatically. So you can change the length, make it shorter, longer. If you really want to scare your students and ensure they don't read every word of your email, you can make it super long. If you don't like the length, you can also, I really don't know what I just applied, so that's exciting. I think I made it a little bit longer. Yes, I did. You can also change the tone. So this is my favorite thing to play around with. So you can make the tone more casual. If you think it's too formal sounding, you can sound more casual. But if you don't want to be too friendly of a professor, you want to make sure that everyone knows how important your midterm project is, you can make this super formal. And I always like to do this because it's pretty formal, and I'll show you what that sounds like when you change the tone. So those are all those kind of quick ways that you can refine your response, in addition to just the standard, like I'm going to say something else or ask, use my prompt box. So now, it's incumbent upon each student to seek any necessary clarification in advance of the deadline, right? Now, you're probably not going to write something that's that formal. Maybe that's your style. You want to make sure that your students think this actually is coming from you, right? This is my email. So there are those options for refining the prompt there. So let's go into a couple of these demonstrations. We'll probably only get to a couple of those here, but again, there are several things you can play around with during playtime. Taking the idea of emailing students. So very likely, whatever role you're in, you're sending emails all the time. If you're an instructor and you teach several courses, you might be often sending emails to students. So maybe you want a way, because this is a recurring task for your day-to-day work here at FAU, maybe you want a way to have something you can go to that's already been kind of pre-trained or pre-set up with your particular preferences, your length preferences, how it's going to sound, how you want it structured, key information that you want to always include if you're emailing students, right? You can actually use what's called Gemini Gems to set something up to have a little email assistant that you can go back to for some of those recurring tasks, so you don't have to prompt it every time to get close to what you're hoping it will produce. So to access Gems, if you go back to your sidebar, you'll see that the Explore Gems link is there. And any gems that you have previously created will be pinned there to your sidebar. If I go into Explore Gems, and again, these are custom versions of Gemini that give you tailored responses based on how they've been trained or set up. So not only can you create your own, but you'll see a few that have been created that are available to you there that Gemini created, right? Pre-made by Google. So there's a couple that are in like beta mode. So you have one of my favorites is this storybook where you can create a customized picture book for children based on a given topic or theme. You have a chess champ here that you can play around with, a brainstorming partner, a writing editor, a career guide. So you're free to go and explore some of those gems that have already been created there for you, or you can make your own. So we're going to go in and make our own gem, again, kind of taking that same topic of having a student email assistant. It's going to prompt you to name your gem. So again, student email assistant is going to be this gem that I'm going to go to anytime I'm drafting emails to students. And then there's a couple things you can do for setting it up and giving it instructions. So you have your instruction space there, and you can be as specific as you want to be in giving it instructions for the kind of length or tone or some key information you always want it to include. So I have a little prompt here that I'll just copy. I'm not going to be super specific here with my gem. You're a helpful university faculty assistant. Your tone is professional, encouraging, and clear. You write emails to students. Whenever I give you a topic, draft a concise, friendly email. You can play around with this tool here at the bottom that says use Gemini to rewrite instructions. So you can actually ask it to help you refine the instructions if there's things that they feel like it's missing maybe that could help refine your instructions there. You can play around with that. And then you can also add files for reference. So if you have example emails that you want to send it so that it knows your style and kind of your tone and how you want them set up, you can add any files there to also help kind of train that gem. But I'm going to leave it pretty simple, and I'm just going to save this. Awesome. So I'm going to actually just X out of this and show you how it shows up on my sidebar over here. So there's my student email assistant. But of course, anytime you select Explore Gems, you will see all gems that you've previously created there whenever you go to the gems space. So we can try it out with just a simple prompt. Draft an email to my intro to sociology class, reminding them their midterm paper is due next Friday. And again, it doesn't really look any different than just the regular Gemini interface, except of course you see at the top the title that's your student email assistant that's been trained a little bit, right? And you would just submit and see what it generates. The exciting thing to tell you today is our friend Carlos in IT and all of our IT friends who are here wanted me to share that there is a new Google Gemini and Canvas integration that is possible. So if you want Google Gemini integrated into one of your courses, you can reach out via the help desk link that I added to the slide and ask them to integrate it so you can actually have custom gems available in your Canvas course that your students can use. So if that's something that you're interested in and you want to kind of explore that, again, that link to that, sending that help desk inquiry, this is a new thing, so you have to reach out to IT to get that set up, but that's something exciting that is possible as part of this new FAU partnership. Great, so again, there is my student email assistant generated email. And I'm running out of time, so I'm going to very quickly move to the last thing I wanted to show you, which is the double check feature. So let's say you are working on a grant proposal or you're putting together information slides or something for a course, and you are starting with Google Gemini as kind of an initial brainstorm partner for something that is really kind of hopefully fact-based. There's a lot of factual information in there. If I am prompting Google Gemini to give me some really hopefully factual information, and I just have a sample here over the key findings of the 2023 IPCC report on climate change mitigation. So I'm sending this to Google Gemini. It's going to think and give me what we hope are factual information that it has gathered through the Google tools, right? So I didn't prompt it with a length or anything, but it's given me quite a bit of information here. It's still kind of thinking, so we'll give it another second. I'll collapse this so that you can see a little bit better. So right away, even before we do any sort of checking of the information, you'll notice that it does give you links to sources already. So that's great. Without even prompting it, it's going to link you to sources where it's gotten some of that information. So that's already a great start. But if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the response, just next to where you see the good response, bad response, and click these 3 dots here, you'll see something that says double check response. And if I select that, you are asking it to go through and for all of those like factual pieces of information that are in the response, it's going to go and conduct a Google search to try to fact check and double check the accuracy of all that information. And hopefully, if it's given us a good response, you will then see after a couple of seconds a bunch of highlighted in green information, okay? That's what we want. Green means that when they took all of the statements that are really fact-based, not just filler statements, which are the things that are not, or the concluding statements, right? Not the things that are not highlighted there, but everything else, when they used Google search, they were able to verify, to find similar information to kind of back up those claims, right? And you'll note if you, again, because this is one of the newer features, if you click understand the results, you'll see that if they did not find content to back that up, right? Or they found maybe contradictory information, it will be highlighted in orange. And then you know for sure you need to go in and update and go to the sources themselves. So, this is, again, just kind of an initial step when you're first gathering information. I think of it kind of like going to Wikipedia first, but you know that after you have that information, you have to, you need to go to the sources and read that source content and verify the information yourself. But it's just kind of a nice check on that information before you're, of course, just kind of dumping anything into your slides and sharing it with your students. And the other thing I'll mention is, if you're teaching a course and you feel comfortable with your students using AI in 1 or 2 of your assignments, whatever you're doing, talking to them about this feature, I think kind of reinforces the idea that we don't use generative AI as just sort of a place to go get easy answers. It's kind of a starting point for, okay, we're not going to just accept whatever it's generating, but we need to, it's a first step, and then we need to go and do the research ourselves and look at those sources more closely. And this is just one reminder of how important it is to fact check the accuracy of the information that you're using. So it's another feature that I like. But like I said, both the prompts that I used for GEMS and for the double check your response are in the slides. And there are a couple other things for you to use. There's that guided learning tool that I encourage you to use. Explore the FAU AI tools page with those Google Gemini prompts. That's another great thing to use this time for. I hope that you feel like Google Gemini is accessible and it's maybe made you excited about exploring it yourself. You might just find that Google Gemini comes up in a future playground because there are so many other things to play around with it. So many other things it can do that we don't have time to get to today. But thanks for your time.